really excited about Sangram joining us today because he is, again, truly an expert in the space, and quite frankly, he's written a book about it, and I think he'll talk about today. So please help me welcome Sangram Vajre to the T-Rex stage.
Thank you so much. All right, Durham, how you doing? Good. All right. Well, I want to give a huge round of applause to Vince and Eric, but I want us to do that in slow clap. Anybody has done slow clap before? All right. So don't have to stand up. You can be seated where you are. So I'll just chill. But just follow me along. And as you go towards the end of the slow clap, just make as much noise as you can to show your excitement for Eric and Vince. All right? You guys ready for that? All right. Here you go. 1, 2, 3, go. Woo! All right. All right. That's awesome. That's a lot of noise. That's awesome. All right, guys. So Sangram here. I love talking on this idea of good to great. How many of you have read any of these books? Good to great? All right. 22 immutable laws. 1. And that is a fact. I think I loved Andy's presentation because he talked about so many things that didn't change, right? And things that need to change. But there are also so many things that absolutely our customers never want to change. For example, would your customer be great at, like, if you raise the prices on them? Or would you like your Amazon packages to come late? Never, right? There's certain things that our customers, as we as people, just don't want to ever go bad. So the 22 immutable laws, I think it was written in 1990s, and I love this book, and I go back to it. It's a quick read. It's like literally like 40, 50-minute read, but it reminds me of this one thing, which is our customers are humans. They're people just like you and me. They have likes, desires, all those things, and we just want to make sure that everything we do connects with them, and that emotion doesn't change. We still love certain things that we loved 100 years ago, and we still love the same things. Like, people want to be felt, cared, heard. Like, those things are super important. So those 2 books are one of my favorite books, and the entire presentation that I have today actually based on some of the quotes and some of the ideas from these books. So I love to steal ideas because I think there's no original ideas. There are all ideas that just become combination of it, and these 2 books have given me and inspired me a lot. So hopefully, if nothing, if you don't like anything that I have to say today, at least those 2 books would be a good one for you to put it behind you. All right? So let's talk about this idea of good to great. But can somebody over here help me define greatness? Go for it. What is greatness? Optimized? All right? Anybody up here? I'm going to start picking on people. Better than average. Wikipedia, are you reading something? All right, go for it. It's defined differently for every. I love that. That's really, really close on something what Jim Collins said. Anybody over here? What is greatness? Exceeding expectations. Going to your full potential. I love that. What I realized, and if you really go back to the definition in the book that Jim Collins really talks about, is that it comes down to the single word, kind of aligns with what both of you said, which is it's a choice. It's defined individually. It's a choice. So I loved about Andy's presentation was he was really talking about, if I have to sum it up, I think he was talking about the choices that we have to make in sales and marketing to do certain things great. But it's a choice. Do you want to win today? Do you want to win tomorrow? Do you want to actually be a winning sales or marketing person? It's a choice. Because the next person to you doesn't not necessarily want the same thing as you do. Like, that's why people are working hard or working smarter, all these processes, everything. I think it comes down to what do you really, really want. So I think choice is a big part. So I want to share something about me and my son. So this whole presentation is going to be about 4 things. One about parent maturity curve. Anybody parents over here? All right, great. You're going to hate me after this. 2, I want to share a framework that we developed that I feel might help do this whole idea of sales and marketing. And I feel like alignment is a dirty word. It's the new dirty word. I feel like You got to build trust, like deep trust between sales and marketing. So we're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to share 4 stories of companies who have actually gone from good to great using that framework. And then finally, I want to leave you with just one question that I hope you wrestle with, really wrestle with. Not just today, but as part of your job. You write it down, and you wrestle with that question a lot. But let's just talk about parenting. So last year in December, November, December timeframe, my mother-in-law got sick. She's in India, so my wife and my daughter had to go to India. And there was this, me and Krish, my son, 8-year-old, at home. And we didn't know when they were going to come back because her mom was just not doing well. Good. The end of that story is that she's well, she's fine, so it's all good. But it was just me and Krish at home. And through Thanksgiving, like November 15th through December 15th, we were by ourselves for 30 days. And I was terrified, quite honestly, because 8-year-olds are like kind of grown up. They have questions. And they want to do things, and they all those things. And I think as a dad, I feel like I never really recognized the importance of my role in my son's life as much as I did in those 30 days. I think it was the greatest learning experience for me. But what we went through, what I feel was the maturity curve of status quo to dad 1.0 to dad 2.0. And it really fundamentally changed how I think about parenting now. So one day maybe I'll write a book on parenting, but it really changed the way I think about it. So you guys excited or interested in hearing how it went? All right, good. So disclaimer, results may vary. Don't try all of these things at home. This kind of didn't work in some areas. But essentially, my wife gave me pretty simple rules. Like, hey, look, make sure you feed him. He doesn't go hungry. Make sure you guys play so he's not bored. Like, watch TV so he's not hurt. Like, very simple, basic rules of like just keeping him alive for that 1 month. And I was thinking about this, like, no, I want to make it epic. I want to make it amazing. I want this to be memorable, all those things. And obviously, we want to make sure that he goes to school and all that, but also want to spend time that's just memorable for us. So, watching TV, the first thing, if I'm as a dad 1.0, I probably should have shown him like Finding Nemo or Coco or one of those movies. But as a diehard Rocky fan, we saw the entire series of Rocky. Anybody Rocky fans here? All right, cool. If you have not seen it, you need to go see. That's more important than the books. I'm telling you, it's like amazing. And we are like best friends, like Krish and I now. Like we talk about that. He recites some of the dialogues of Rocky all day long. It is incredible how those movies just made me. And it was a really important moment for me, quite honestly, because if he didn't like Rocky, then it would have been a tough kind of thing for us moving forward. So it was really important. So the fact that he loved it was really, really, really awesome. So that was my dad 2.0 moment. So let's talk about feeding. So of course, we were making sure he's eating healthy. As a dad 1.0, I probably should have been giving him healthy food every single day. But he keeps saying, I want to eat pancakes. I want to eat pancakes. And I'm like, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. And this is a tip for everybody, regardless of parenting. If somebody's asking for something, and if you give too much of it, they will stop asking for it. So what we did was, okay, I'm like, you know what, you want pancakes? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have pancake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we cooked epic pancakes. Like, it had all kinds of stuff on it. And at the end of it, he's like, Dad, next morning, I'm like, do you want pancakes? He's like, Dad, no, don't give me pancakes. I'm done. So if you have kids and if they're asking for stuff, or if you have coworkers or employees, they're asking for stuff, just give them so much of it that they will stop asking for it. It works. It is like, again, another great lesson for me. All right, here's the play part. Now, this is interesting because I'm active. He's super active. So I'm like, I want to do active stuff, play, and he plays Xbox and stuff. But I wanted to do something that I've done, which I don't think my wife would have allowed, or it's not even legal to do, I think, which is jumping off the planes. So I love doing that, and I've done that. And clearly, that's not something that was going to fly. So I'm like, how do I create that experience of just connected and flying and just being free and feeling that? So I found a spot in Atlanta. It's called indoor skydiving. Anybody has been to indoor skydiving? Oh, it's fun. It's epic. I think I fell down a couple of times just because I'm not used to in the indoor spot. And it was amazing. And he said to me, And after like those 15 days, again, I'm just talking about some of the good things that we did, but also like we did school, we did studies, we did all these things, but it made me realize something. It made me realize that as we went through this journey of status quo dad who just checked in and did my part of like, hey, how you doing, how was school, how was homework, and making sure he's just fine. As parents, the things that I think we did, Manmeet and I talked about, my wife, her name is Manmeet, is that those are just status quo. He needed more than that. And this 1 month journey recognized, for us, it made us recognize that it really matters what choices we make. So the big thing, I think, a lesson if from all of this really for us is that I think what Krish would say is that, Dad, you have a choice. You have a choice of how you spend as a mom, as, I think for us as like sales and marketing professionals, we all have a choice of how we conduct ourselves, how we do certain things, and where we spend time. And again, going back to Andy's whole point of time is like, it didn't take me crazy amount of time to do all these things. That was like, it was nothing. It was just fun, but had to put enough thought in it. And when you focus on something that matters to you, it gets better. It really gets better. And I think our relationship got better. Now we have this thing where we are treating every weekend as a vacation. So what we do in that, so our relationship as a family got better. Like we don't want to be tied to TV and movies and all those things throughout the weekend. Let's just figure out how do we turn every weekend into a vacation kind of feeling. Like how do we create that? And all these different things started in our family. But it all came down to this one word that I want everybody to really think about is your choice. How you treat your customers. And you can't treat your customers. What I realized, we can't treat our customers amazing if you're not treating our spouse, things at home, people at home, and everything. It starts right there. It starts deep in our heart where we spend our time. And that becomes better. Everything else really amazingly gets better. So with that as a backdrop, I want to kind of share this whole idea of account-based marketing, right? I wrote the very first book on account-based marketing. I'm writing the second book. But what I want to share is that in the last 4 years since I wrote the first book on it, and we all have heard, how many of you have heard about account-based marketing? All right, most of you guys. And how many of you are in sales? Okay, how many of you are in marketing? One lesson that I learned from this 4-year journey is that we all, if you're in B2B, we all are in marketing and sales. The word "and" is super important. One without the other doesn't work. And that's really what I'm thinking about for this book is, well, what I learned was ABM is actually B2B. It's everything that we should know who we're going after, we should know how to engage, we should know how to target them, we should know how to measure success with it. So that's really what the presentation is going to be about. My lessons, the lessons I learned in the last 4 years writing the first book, what has changed for me and how I think about sales and marketing now, that it has been a great journey for those 2 years. So this is the team framework. We can send the slides later. But there are only 4 things. And it's not a marketing thing, and it's not a sales thing. It is one team thing, okay? Team. Target, engage, activate, and measure. So let's say it together, all right? Target, engage, activate, and measure. The reason I did that because somebody said that, hey, if you're on stage, you can ask anything for the people, and they will do it. So thanks for doing that. But it's really important. I mean, you think about it. It's a team. If you're trying to remember it, it's literally team. And we talked about sales and marketing working as one team. You want that. You want that in your organization. We're talking backstage earlier with someone, and they said, hey, you know what? We have a sales team, but the marketing team is not doing what we need. They should be fired, quite honestly, right? Because if marketing's job is to incrementally or exponentially grow sales, period. I've not seen any company out there who have marketing people and no sales people in B2B. Have you? But I've seen companies that are doing really well that have salespeople and no marketing. So I think as a marketer myself, having run marketing at Pardot, worked at Salesforce, starting a company, focusing on ABM, what I realized is a market man, number one job is to drive incremental or exponential sales for the company. If that's not what I'm doing, and it can be done through brand building, that brand drive demand, it can be done through the whole ABM. We are going to hear through stories of certain companies who have done it. but it really is at the core of who you are as a marketer. If you're listening to this thing, this is important. It's not to put you down. It's actually you have the ability to change the course of your organization. It's an incredible role if you want to leverage that. So let's talk about this whole maturity curve, but now in the sense of B2B. And we'll get back to parenting towards the end, I promise. All right, so let's say we're going through the same thing of status quo to 1.0 to 2.0, and the whole journey is about good to great. And we're going to look across this framework of team, target, engage, activate, measure. When I think about targeting, if we don't know who we are going after, no matter what you do, and the rest won't matter, which is why ABM is so important. Now, tell me what is the title of a salesperson? Any sales reps here? What is your title? Account executive. That's when we started the company 4 years ago, because that was the aha moment. Marketing is giving leads to sales, and sales works on accounts. It's in their title. So if you give leads to sales in those accounts that they care about, that they want to close that month, that quarter, they're going to love you if you're in marketing. They're going to love you. But the problem is marketing a lot of times give leads to salespeople that are not even in their list of accounts they're going after. That is the biggest reason why it's called account-based. Forget the word marketing, it's account-based, marketing and sales together, one team. One team. So targeting is super important. If you don't know who you're going after, the rest won't matter. But here's how many of you buy from Amazon? All right, me too. I have random boxes showing up at my houses every so often, and I have no idea what they are, and I still get happy about it. And we open it as like a Christmas gift. Like, I don't know, it's a ritual in our house. So when I think about that, I feel like a customer telling to marketer when they receive information from them is something like this. Like, hey, it's not that I want unicorns, but it's just that I don't think you even know my name. I feel like that's what our customers say to us without sending them an email, because they see the content is irrelevant for them. It doesn't apply to them. It goes back to if you don't know who you're going after, you can't customize that content as much, right? So here's an example of Masergy. One of the 4 examples. The first one, Masergy. Their journey from status quo to good to great. They had some incredible opportunities in marketing and sales as they did. They had about 25,000 leads that they were generating every year. So no problem with lead generation. It was awesome. But they still felt it disconnected with the sales process. They felt like sales was not working on the leads. Why? We just talked about it. Marketing was giving them leads for the accounts that sales were not focused on. That was the disconnect. That is the disconnect probably today in your organization if you're in marketing saying, well, sales is not working on my leads. Well, that's because they're your leads, not their leads. That's the basic premise there. So they went on this journey where they started with this idea of like, we're going to come up with this top 100 accounts that we want to go after. And marketing and sales sat down together, agreed on those accounts, and boom, there you go. Every single thing they did from there on was for those 100 accounts. The results were like amazing. Again, like we can talk about details of it later on, but I wanted to share that the results in terms of pipeline revenue was incredible. What's even more interesting is where they're going. When you think about going great, is when they saw these results, their executive team said, you know what, we want this to be across, not just for 100 accounts, I want this for across the entire account list for every single salesperson. Let's figure out how do we do this at scale. And what they did, what they call, is an always-on campaign, which means they're always on for the list of target accounts. And what's interesting about them, beyond the success that they're getting and the revenue they're generating, is their NPS score, Net Promoter Score, which is their customers telling them that you are serving us better. It jumped from about 70 to 90%. Now, why is that important? It goes back to Andy's point around customer first, right? Thinking about customers. Well, if the customers are happy, they're referring to you more business, you're charging them more, but that only can happen if you know who your customers are, and that can only happen if you're targeting the right customers, and that can only happen if you know who to go after. And sales and marketing are building trust together. So all that is aligned. It's not one after the other. It's literally, you get this right, you get the second step right, and the third step follows. It's not other way around. So their story is pure, very transformational, because they went from this disconnected campaign an amazing marketing team but not driving revenue to this incredible results where the CEO, the CFO, the entire executive said, we want this to be done across the organization. Make sense? All right, let's look at engage, and then we'll go to the second story. Engagement is really interesting. How many of you think that most people have the whole idea that, hey, they don't have the attention span of, they have the attention span of a goldfish? How many of you think that's true? Nobody? It's true? Well, how do you explain you and I watching 3 hours of Netflix or tons of YouTube channels and watching videos that we like? Anybody binge watched anything lately? Right? How do we explain that? The reality is this, and if a customer is actually telling to a marketer or salesperson, is that it's not that we have an attention span, because again, we're all humans, goes back to the same premise, is that your content sucks, and it's not interesting enough. And we're going to learn more about what that means as an example. So if you engage, if you want to engage, and if you're sending the same email to everybody, that's why they're not engaging. If you create content for one person, one account in that persona, they will guaranteed engagement. And I'll show you some of those results. They're mind-blowing. Especially in the Masergy case, they had like 5 times the more engagement because they knew the account and the content was personalized. Now let's look at an example, Promoda. Promoda started with this idea that, hey, look, all traffic is equal. All traffic that comes to my website is equal. The higher the traffic, the better it is. I did the same thing. I remember when I was at Salesforce, we'll be in a board deck, and I'll show, oh, look, the traffic is going up and to the right. Marketing is phenomenal. But what if it's not from the right accounts that your sales wants to focus on? What will happen? You're going to miss out on the right one. So they did a deeper study on like, well, what's going on with this, right? Their actual traffic, when they started account-based marketing, dropped by 70%. Dropped. Now, in most organizations, that will be a time you talk about transition plan for whoever is running marketing, right? Like, okay, the traffic is dropped by 70%. Like, you're not doing your job. But when they dug deeper, what they saw that they were not getting any bad traffic anymore. They were getting traffic from the right people. As a matter of fact, the traffic increased by 70% for the accounts that their salespeople cared about. Big difference. Big difference. And this is so important. If you're looking at metrics the same way we looked at it 5, 10, 50, 100 years ago, you would say, well, traffic down, bad marketing. But they proved through data that no, traffic down is good marketing and good sales because now we're focused on what matters to our organization. And their cost of acquisition went down by 60%. As a matter of fact, they went from 22 different technologies to 6. And their deals are $1 million deal size. So where I'm taking you guys is on a journey of like, we have to challenge the status quo. The very status quo that we all believe is so true has to be challenged, which means it's not necessary that more tools means more value. We all need to get in the habit of asking this question, so what? So what the traffic is up? So what if we have 100 downloads for the ebook? Are they from the right people? So what if we have 500 people attending a webinar? Are they the right people? We're not asking the so what question. So I'll challenge you guys to take that home and say, so what? Let's look at our list and say, are these the right people? Chances are they're not, majority of it. Forrester's research said that less than 1% of the leads turn into customer. Let me say it another way. 99% of the leads that marketing is generating and sales is working on doesn't drive revenue. Take that to your CEO and CFO. It won't be a good conversation. So the question is, are we working on the right folks? All right, so that's second. Third one, activating the sales. Now, I know there's a lot of salespeople here, so this should get you excited. There's nothing more important as a marketing team to do than to get your salespeople working on the accounts that they really want to work on. I mean, it's really no rocket science there, right? So here's an example of a newsletter. How many of you send newsletters? All right, what will happen when you don't send a newsletter? Nothing? What does that tell about our activity? What does that tell about what we do and what matters? We're doing that because it's a list of things to do. But if you don't send a newsletter, and the only reason you send newsletters is because your executive team wants to know that your marketing is doing their job or sales is doing their job, then we have to think again of what kind of organization we are in and what we're really doing. But the reality is, if you don't send a newsletter, nothing is going to happen. That's bad. As a matter of fact, it might give you 3, 4, 5 hours in a week back to focus on the right accounts and create personalized email to the people that your sales and marketing team wants to reach out to. As Andy said, you want time? That's how you create time, is stop doing the stuff that doesn't make sense and doesn't matter to your customer. All right, so here's an example of a company, Thomson Reuters. How many of you have heard about Thomson Reuters? Big company, big brand. I'm going to share something that some of you would like, that's bullshit. But it's interesting. They started with this idea of account-based marketing, saying, okay, we're going to focus on the right accounts. We're going to go after this. They have a huge business, and majority of their business comes from their existing customers, almost 70, 80%, especially in the business unit that's running an ABM program. So typically, the sales activation is like, hey, somebody downloads an ebook, and we'll tell the salespeople to follow up. That's reactive. A proactive will be, if you have the 100 list people, 100 companies to go after, and any one of them are engaging, that's proactive because you know they're already what? Qualified. We don't need to qualify them anymore. That's the beauty of ABM. The whole MQL, SQL process makes sense when you don't know who that person is. But if you know which accounts you're going after, and if some of them, if any one of them fills up a form or comes on your website, you don't need to take them through a qualification process anymore. That's how you waste time for your SDR and AE by having them qualify. Well, stop qualifying. Let's just completely stop that. Because the people that you care about, you would already know who they are. That's because you're targeting them. It's a big change. It's a fundamental game changer for your organization if you really think about that. So they went to this idea, and they started with 250 accounts. They retrained their marketing team and turned them into ABMers. They literally gave them that title. Some of them were content marketers, some of them were product marketers, some of them were demand gen folks. They're like, no, no, you are ABMers. Your job is to figure out how do we close these deals. Now, guess what their win rate was? And remember, 80% of their deals were upsell, cross-sell. The rest 20 were pipeline velocity and then demand gen, new accounts. Guess what their win rate was? Go for it. Pick a number. 85%? That's a pretty high. Every time I've asked somebody, say like, who gets 85% win rate over here? All right, but it's higher than 85. Go for it. It's higher than that. 95. The win rate is 95. And I know majority of you would say, that's impossible. I even had her on the podcast, and we had her in the office, and walk us through this. How is it possible that you have 95% win rate? Well, the reason is because 80%, they're only focused on those 250 accounts. They're focused on nothing else, zero. They just came back and said that their executive team just gave them 500 new, like they started to have like, okay, it's working for cross-sell, upsell, pipeline velocity. Now let's start doing that more for net new demand gen. So now they're working on that. And it may not be as high as 95%, but they built confidence. They built trust with their sales team that never had before. Imagine walking in a room and saying that, hey, we can have upwards of 70, 80, 90% win rate. It's going to change the game for your organization. All right, here's the last one. All right? So this is your CEO or CFO. And they would say, look, it's not that I don't care about your vanity metrics. It's just that those metrics don't make any business sense. I've heard that before, like in a happy hour setting, not face-to-face. But I've heard that before in a happy hour setting. They just don't make sense. The open rate, the click-through rate, the impressions, all the number of sends that you have, number of emails that unsubscribed, oh my goodness, none of them makes any sense to your business leaders. Zero. Zero. Those spreadsheets don't matter. We have to think about business outcomes, right? So here's Snowflake, one of the fastest growing companies. They're about to go public in a few years. They are faster than Salesforce, as it's known. And their entire organization has now become account-based centric. It coming from the CEO of their organization. Like, we need to be account-centric. Why? Here's the journey. and this is super exciting. If you are in marketing and sales today, and if you're trying to figure out how do I grow and get everybody's buying on this, this is for you. This is for you, all right? So they went from this typical inbound funnel, which still works. Anything that comes in, they qualify. You have to qualify what comes through inbound because you don't know who they are. But if you go after the right accounts, you don't need to qualify them when they come in. Big difference, big saving of time. You can literally have different sales teams working on inbound versus this whole idea of ABM. And they went through this whole 500 one-to-one. They started with 500 accounts, and each one of those accounts had a one-to-one campaign. You know what a one-to-one campaign looks like? In their case, it's a one ad to one persona, so different personas within their organization, that takes them to one landing page. So there's a different landing page for every single company that they're reaching out to. Then they have retargeting from there with a single ad and one direct mail, very specific to that company. And they're doing 500 of them. This is of 2018. So 2019, they're doing 1,500 of them. That's the level of sophistication. And guess what their win rate is? The opportunity is upwards of 80%, and their win rate is like, they know that they're going to win that deal, they just don't know when, right? Everybody's bought in. But here is the beautiful, I want to paint a picture for you. So Daniel Day, who runs their ABM program, feel free to connect with him. He's on LinkedIn, he shares a lot of these things, so it's like real. I don't want any of this to feel like utopian. This is real, this is happening. Your peers are doing it, they're crushing quota because they're doing something that you may not be doing today. He talks about this idea, look, I now walk in a boardroom, in a sales leadership meeting as a marketer, and I tell them, okay, if you want to grow revenue by double and you want to go in North America, here are the 5 regions where we can put salespeople in because I know there are only 500 accounts or 400 accounts in those regions that we can go after. Don't hire 10 salespeople, just hire X number of salespeople because we can run one-to-one campaigns and here's our win rate for it. So he's helping the salespeople figure out, or the sales leaders figure out how many people to hire because he already knows how many accounts they can go after in those regions. Why? Because they know who they're targeting really well. Goes back to the basic premise. But here is the kicker. He's also going in and helping them forecast how many deals are closing. How many of you had like salespeople in all of you, a lot of you are in sales, say that, hey, I know this deal is going to close, but then it goes dark. Happened to anybody? Right? And they responded, look, I don't know why it's going dark, but based on analytics, I can tell you that of these 50 accounts that you want to close, 5 of these accounts are actually spending time on our website. I can see that those 5 accounts are engaged with our ads, our direct mail, and they are on our website. There are more than 3 people in these specific accounts. So guess what? Our forecast is going to be based on these 5 deals to be closed. The rest 45 that you feel, that's gravy. So they're able to accurately forecast and help forecast the sales team what might actually happen based on the activity. And we all have this data. We all have this ability to look at. So that's I felt was phenomenal. So that's your B2B maturity curve. I'm happy to share that later on. But bringing back to parenting and marketing, in closing, what's common in both of that? I felt like, well, when you're a parent, as husband and wife, you realize that we need to be, quote unquote, aligned. And maybe Krish, as he's growing up, we want him to be in as many activities as possible right now, which is no different than probably good marketing, good sales practice, which is like, you know what, marketing and sales needs to be aligned, right? We want to make sure that there are many tools that you might have to do in an organization to be successful. But if you want to be great, I challenge you with this, that as parents, we realized we need to be one team. If we're not one team, kids are going to find a little gap, a little thing that mom does but dad doesn't, and dad doesn't, mom doesn't, and going to get his or her way. The same thing is with your sales and marketing organization. They need to act and behave as one team. And guess what? You might not need those 50 tools that you have. You might need like 5 or 6, as we saw in case of Pramada. So all that, the question, as I shared before, I want you to all wrestle with, and I want to finish on, is this. What matters to you? Does it matter to win more? As Andy said, then you'll work on a lot of those one-to-one personalization and figure out how do I get in front of them. if it matters to drive more revenue for you, you may not just focus on demand gen, you might focus on pipeline velocity and customer marketing at Thomson Reuters did. If it matters to you that you have a higher close ratio and a higher pipeline, then you would start focusing on those activities. But none of that will happen unless you define what really matters to you. So that's the podcast. I did a course on LinkedIn. You can check it out. But truly appreciate all of you taking and thinking about this question, what matters to you. Thank you.